All right, welcome back to my YouTube channel, James Cox. So I've been wanting to make this video for a while, uh, but I also know that you're not the only ones that are going to be out there paying very close attention to this. So I'm sure that some of the schools know that this is coming out. Um, Probably the former one that I worked at as well, and that's okay because I know that all their legal department is looking. So right now, I just want to make sure that we throw this up in here. I'm going to share my screen and we are going to go to here. Let's see. There we go. So I want to just make sure that we all understand that the information provided on this website or in my YouTube in this case does not it is not intended to constitute legal advice. Instead, all the information, the content and material available on this site or through me are for general information purposes only. The information on this website may not constitute the most up-to-date legal or other information. In other words, this is just a tool that allows the student in these schools to make sure that they're holding accountable the school that they've contracted with to be taught. So that being said, let me go ahead and pop this back off. That being said, let's talk about a few things. So just about every school that you've went to, now I'm primarily talking about the accreditations through the state of Pennsylvania, which that part I'm familiar with. So what we're looking at is whatever state you're in, if you have an accredited governing body that looks over your accreditation, basically making sure that the contract that the schools have agreed to give to the student is being met. And the body that governs that is the accreditation department. Now, I'll tell you this, they're betting that you're not going to follow what they put in your catalog. I'm going to show you how to find that in your catalog and make sure that you document, document, document. Because I assure you that schools are going to document, document, document. So you need to make sure that you have dates, times. If it's a problem with an instructor or something in that, you're going to have to find their names out. You never send the originals. You always send copies. So first of all, in the chain of command, that every school must have some way to show how the complaint process is going to work. And a lot of them are kind of difficult if you read them. Now, I'm not saying if it's unethical or racially motivated or sexual or anything like that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the process of whether you believe that you need an appeal on why they terminated your contract, basically threw you out of school, or it's a grade, or something like in that area. The catalog that they give you is still a valuable tool, but nobody ever reads it. And they don't make it exactly real easy for you to go back through there and do the complaint process. If you look, there's processes of, for example, maybe if you're having trouble with your an instructor for something, they're going to want you to go to that instructor, try to resolve it. No problem. Make sure that you jot down the information. If it's a piece of equipment that you're not happy with, make sure you can identify the number on the front or side or whatever it is, and also the trailer. Some of the things that you're gonna want to make sure they are safe, right? For example, if you're on a range and maybe the equipment is not as good as, say, the road equipment, that doesn't satisfy the safety portion of that. In other words, will it fail an air brake test or will it pass an air brake test? That's kind of important. It's a safety thing. So if it's going to not pass an air brake test, or there's chambers leaking or fluids falling off of it, that's something you may want to document. In that case, again, you want to follow that chain, if you will, of that command to satisfy this. There's some things that you're going to need to do in a timely manner as well. So first of all, you might go after the instructor and say, hey, listen, I don't feel that you're giving me an adequate amount of time, or I don't feel that this piece of equipment is safe, whatever the case may be. Or if it's an unethical and you don't feel comfortable talking to that instructor, for example, then the next step is to obviously find the director or the acting director or whatever the case may be in your school. If that's not a process that you're able to follow, then obviously you're going to find what's called the DOE, which is the Director of Education. If that person also doubles for the campus president, that does help a little bit of your process to getting shortened up. But in either case, I want to say that after all those quickly were exhausted and you're still not feeling comfortable, now you're going to go to your campus president. The trick is that you must provide in writing the dates, all the information, copies to that person. In most catalogs, there's a specific time that they have to get that back to you. All right, do their pre-investigation, if you will. Some of the ones I've looked at were, for example, 7 days. In other words, the 7th day, they must contact you in writing and personally give you in writing, unless you're not there, and obviously they can mail it to your address, but there's a 7-day timestamp to it. So that's one process. If you're still not happy with that situation, obviously you can go up to the next level. Some of them might be to the senior VP, right? And if you don't know these, then you do have a right to ask for this information, email names, numbers, and things like that. And again, you'll find that there's another 7 days, another 7 days, another 7 days. They don't make the process easy for you. So if you're in a couple of weeks, well, chances are, if you're in range maneuvers, for example, you may be out of that process by the time it's there. So you're thinking that probably doesn't do me no good. That's where you're wrong. Complaints must be addressed. Don't leave them go. Once you've started that process, let it ride through and see what's going on. Again, there's some things that you can go outside of that. For example, if it's ethical or, like I said, racial, sexual, something that's, borderline criminal, obviously 911 and calling the police would be my first instinct. But if you're not going to go to that level, but you want to have something done, well, they give you the example to go to. In this case, for the state of Pennsylvania, a couple different boards hold it. There's a state board and there's the federal side of that board. But I went on there, found ACC, SC, I believe it's called, the accrediting body, and the state board. And we're going to share the screen. I'm going to show you where to find that. So share that to here. There we go. This is the Accrediting Commission of Career Schools and Colleges. So there's 2 ways you can go through this. And it's going to tell you that this is the complaint procedure. The following notice must be published in the school's catalog. So this should be here in your catalog in one way or the other. The student complaint procedure. The schools accrediting by the Accrediting Commission of the Career Schools and Colleges must have a procedure. That's their complaint procedures inside the catalog, and an operational plan for handling these student complaints. For example, it has to be in writing. It has to have detailed information, no originals, just copies or photocopies or whatever you need proof-wise. And then they can look it over, and they have 7 days to give it back to you personally in writing on that 7th day. And if you're not happy, you go to the next one. This is what they're talking about. But if the student feels that the school if the student does not feel that the school has adequately addressed a complaint or a concern, because a concern is there too, the student may consider contacting the accrediting commission. All complaints are reviewed by the commission. They must be in written form, and should grant permission for the commission to forward a copy of this complaint to the school for a response. In other words, I'll tell you, having like a whistleblower syndrome where you think they're going to do you dirty, that's not in the books. They definitely know better to do something like that. But regardless, basically when you write this to this body of commission, they're going to take that and send it to the school and say, hey, what's going on here? Has this person went through any of this process, or depending on the severity of the issue or concern. but it has to be in written form. And you got to grant them permission to forward a copy of that complaint to the school for that response. There's a process that it has to handle. So it can be accomplished by filing an ACCSC complaint form, as you see. The complainant will be kept informed as to the status of the complaint as well as the final resolution by the commission. It says here, direct all inquiries to, gives you an address or gives you a couple links. A copy of the ACCSC complaint form is also available at the school and may be obtained by contacting these areas. So let's click on this link right here. It says right here, click on that, we'll come back. Wow, complaints. Down here it says filing a complaint against an ACCSC accredited school, which are your majority of bodies that are in Pennsylvania, for example. I don't know what all the states are. Here's the process first, the process form, sorry. That's what it was talking about, all of these. The following is an outline of the commission's policies or procedures for reviewing complaints. All complaints are reviewed by the commission must be in written form, and should include permission from the complainant to forward a copy of the complaint. If permission is not included in the complaint letter, the commission will not forward a copy to the requesting complainant's permission. If the complainant does not submit a signed complaint form, the commission in all its discretion may not be able to process this complaint. This is what a lot of these things happen to do. These little dot the I and cross the T didn't happen, or someone didn't follow through correctly, and it just got canned, and they let the school know, hey, so-and-so's, got an issue with you, but we can't go any further because it wasn't filled out correctly. Permission is not necessary for advertising complaints, since the advertising is considered public information. We'll get into that another time. The commission will conduct an initial review of the complaint to determine whether the complaint set forth in the information or allegations that reasonably suggest that the school may not be in compliance with the standards or requirements. Again, they have to follow, all schools that are under this body, this governing body, must follow what they said, and it has to be reviewed and accepted by the ACC to be considered accredited. Give you a quick example. On the school that I was previously with, when a new course started, we would have to pull out the syllabus, read it out per each one of the exercises to the students. They needed to know how they can contact the instructors on course, and things like that. The objectives, talking about the grading. If they're not doing that, well, they're not in compliance with what they said they were supposed to do. Another example might be that when they're going to show a maneuver for the first time, it's an instructor led. If the instructor's not leading it and they just say, hey, do what you got to do, you would feel cheated. And so they understand that they don't want that to happen. But if the instructor's not doing it, yes, these are something to follow up on. And we talked about the equipment, for example. It has to be safe. It has to be safe. I'm not saying it has to be brand spanking new, but everything has to work, right? That's a safety issue. We're trying to teach you to be safe. We're going to subject you not having trailer brakes, not having proper brakes, not brakes and adjustment, body parts falling apart inside the truck, seat falling apart, shifters, cracks in the glass, lights don't work, especially when you're on a night part of the range. These things all come into play. Let's see where we're at. Okay, they will conduct an initial review to determine whether the complaints set forth are reasonable, suggest it may not be in compliance with the standards or the requirements. If the additional information or clarification is required, the commission will send a request to the complainant. If the requested information is not received within 30 days, the complaint may be considered abandoned or not investigated. All right. In other words, they're going to let you know you need to get back to them within that 30-day period. And I understand that you may already be through those certain moves, but by you doing your part, someone else may not have to do that part later. So if there's a problem, you bring it up to them. If the commission determines that after initial review of the complainant that the information or allegations do not reasonably suggest that the school may not be in compliance with ACC standards or requirement, the complainant may consider closed or investigated by them. That's at the commission after the first initial review. If you have some ground there, it's not going to stop just there. They have to answer it. These are the people that are in your corner, if you think about it that way. If the commission determines that the initial review of the complainant, that the information or allegations reasonably suggest that the school may not be in compliance with the standards or requirements, the commission will forward their complaint to the school named in the complainant with the complainant and will summarize the allegations. They will identify the standards or requirements that the school allegedly violated and allow the school an opportunity to respond. In the event that there are pending on-site evaluations at the school, the on-site evaluation team or the school may be aware of the complaint of any stage or the process. In all instances, the commission will take the school's response to the complainant into consideration prior to rendering its decision. These are the process you have to go through. This is like buying a brand new car, putting all that money up there for a loan and not checking the oil or not getting your oil changed. You have paid a lot of money for that. You need to make sure that it's going to work properly with the things that it tells you. In the cases where advertising violations, will forward a copy of the advertisement to the school, citing the standard that may be violated and requesting a response. If the news article or the media broadcast carries a negative report on the accredited school, the school is requested to respond to the statement on or before a specific date. The school will have an opportunity to submit a response to the complainant. Commission will review the complaint and the response for the complaint. If the commission concludes that the allegations established a violation, the commission will take appropriate action to require the school to achieve compliance and required, and will send a letter to the complainant and a copy to the school. A record of this file is maintained in the commission's office. If the commission concludes that the allegations do not establish a violation of the standards or requirements, the commission will consider the complaint closed. In all instances, it will send a letter to the complainant and the school regarding the final disposition of the complainant, and the record of the complaint will be kept on file in the commission's office. It's important to follow through. That's going to be it. Let's see what happens when. Let's go to this here. Oh, wrong one. Hold on. Back out of there. Get out of there. All right, sorry. Back into here. Let's look at these complaints. Let's see what an actual ACCSC complaint form is going to look like. As you can see, I went to the same link. Here's the complaint form itself. Again, it's basically going to ask you for permission to go through all this. Gives you the stuff that you need to do. Notice it says the basis of any allegation for a non-compliance standard for requirements. All relevant names, dates, and a brief description of the actions forming the basis of the complaint. Copies of any documents and material that support these allegations when available. And a release from the complainant, that's you, authorizing the commission to forward a copy of the complaint and identification of the complainant to the school. This can be achieved by completing and submitting page 2 of this form. All right, upon receipt, on and on and on, please read that. All right, down here is what it's basically going to ask you. Complainant's name, address, city, state, zip, telephone, email, name of the program, when you started the program, that'd be your official date, the school's name, the school's address, the school's city, state, zip, telephone numbers. You want to try to make sure all these are filled out. And make sure there's just a copy of this for you too. Indicate whether you have already registered a formal complaint. All right. you did or you didn't. Either you went through that process with them first or you didn't. Reviewing of its entirety, procedures and handling, go to the FCC. That's where we were previous. Attach a statement describing the nature of the complaint. The statement should also include the description of the event, the circumstances of what it was based on, the names or titles, if any individuals involved. If available, please include copies of any document or material that supports that. Maybe you want a friend of yours also wants to back you up and say, hey, yeah, this happened. I witnessed it. It all depends on whether they would do it. But it says statement granting permission to forward a complaint to the school, certifies that it's true and correct to the best of your knowledge, and granting that permission. This one says instructions for e-signature, but you can do it, print it out, mail it to them, make sure that you have pay the extra couple bucks to do that registered receipt where you'll get that receipt back. That's how they're supposed to do it. Your school, most of them will send it by registered mail where they need to prove it. If they don't, then how they prove you got it back. But that's a pretty simple way of doing it. So it's important that all the money that you put out there, let me close this back out. All the money that you put out there to learn this trade, and you made a contract with that school, and you said, listen, I will give you this amount of money if you'll give me the training here that you describe. If my classes start at 8 o'clock and you're telling me not to be late, and it's 5 after, 10 after 8, and finally the teacher rolls in, right? That's a problem. 5 or 10 minutes don't look like a lot, but over, say, 6-month class, that adds up to quite significant. I mean, this is like the equivalent of giving a few hundreds or $1,000 or something like that away. It's not right. So it's important that you hold the student or the school to the same standard that they're holding you to. They're telling you that if you're late or you're tardy or you don't show up, we're going to mark you, right? Blah, 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 blah. You need to be that same way. I know nobody likes to read the catalog. God knows I didn't either. But I did have to get into it. So I've become quite versed on the previous school that I worked for's catalog. And I think that I think you can even find most of these online. They're not like super secret or nothing like that. I think if you Google them, you'll find your current school's catalog somewhere. But go out there and find it. Don't disregard this. Remember, ultimately, you're responsible to go after and make sure you're getting your education, right? We preach this and preach this and preach this. Make them accountable like they're going to hold you accountable. And I'm not saying make it up. I'm saying do what you have to do. Again, I want to make sure that as I leave, I'm going to go ahead and put this disclaimer up one more time. I just want to make sure that you all are aware that that's where it is. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is general information on how to make sure that your school stays in the same understanding with you, right? It's a way for you to reach back out if you don't feel that you're getting the proper training. And if you're not sure, go through the process and let the accreditation people come to your side as well. Thank you for joining me. I hope this opens up something. I'm available for questions. I don't know what I can answer, but I can kind of give you some direction if you need it. Use the power. Get back to it. God bless. Have a fine day.